Hello, Danny Diamond here. You're on the Diamond Mine. Happy Easter, everybody. We're going to do another edition of Listomania, and this is the TDM 11th episode, Easter Excellent Eagles edition. Thank you, Lisa, for the additional alliteration. We added excellent upon her suggestion. Big Eagles fan here for just ever since 77 or so when Hotel California came out, and my sister Lisa, who I just mentioned, actually had the 45, and I would go in her room, put that single on, and to this day that is still my #1 favorite guitar solo ever. And in fact, the first video I ever posted that started all of my video postings on Facebook, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago now, something like that, was my version of Hotel California. So I'm going to rank the Eagles albums here. Thank you, everyone who checked out the Van Halen Listomania album ranking. I know that I was a little bit long-winded there, and I kind of explained what Listomania is going to be. Anybody who needs that explanation, please refer to that Van Halen Listomania, but make sure you've got the nearly 37 minutes needed. So now the Eagles catalog, they are not that prolific of a band. In fact, they've been around for 49 years now. They're doing 7 albums in that time, so they do an album every 7 years. So they're kind of rivaling, bands like Boston and Def Leppard for, the title of least prolific. But when they do put out an album, it's excellent. Even the worst album here, it's still got some wonderful tracks. So we're going to kick right in with that. Album number 7, my worst, but still some excellent material on this. The most recent album. I don't know how well you can see that. Some of these albums sort of translate screen to screen better than others, but that is the cover to Long Road Out of Eden, which came out in 2007. Long Road Out of Eden, long indeed. That's the whole thing, I think. It's 20 songs, and there was a time where I'd get really excited by a longer album, by a double album from anyone. I think by and large these days, if I'm going to listen to a really lengthy album, I guess I'm more forgiving when it's a concept album, and that is not the case here. I am the huge Eagles fan, though. You can see there above my shoulder here, that's the actual vinyl album cover to their greatest hit 71 to 75, which actually is the best-selling album of all time. Overtook Thriller some time ago. The third best-selling album of all time is actually Hotel California, according to the most recent stats that I have seen. I think there's maybe some argument as to whether it be Hotel California or Back in Black. But anyway, the Eagles are, possibly the most popular band of all time. So they get a lot of flack. There's a lot of backlash against anything that popular. But I think they're excellent. A friend of mine, who I won't name drop here, I'll just say that he's a contender for maybe the most talented musician I've ever met. He's gone on record before as calling them the American Beatles. So this return, this long-awaited studio album output from them, the first thing since the long run, decades before, we'll still have some great tracks on it. I'm going to say that the top tracks for me are there's 7 of them out of 20. So you do 20 songs, you're going to have some highlights. No More Walks in the Wood, tremendous tune, incredible harmonies on that song. Busy Being Fabulous, great Timothy B. Schmidt ballad, I Don't Want Here Anymore. Waiting in the Weeds, another Timothy B. Schmidt ballad, Do Something. The title track, which is an absolute epic at over 10 minutes long, and Last Good Time in Town. Now, I think one of the problems with this record, Last Good Time in Town, is one of the more upbeat things, and it's still sort of a mid-tempo thing. This thing's really heavy on the ballad side of things, so it gets a little sleepy, but still some beautiful music there, great songwriting. I would say that coming up next for me is where I would put the debut. So, still a fine album. I think they were still, finding their footing, of course. The songwriting hadn't fully developed yet. I think, for me, the top track on here is Witchy Woman. Most of Us Are Sad is a really great Randy Meisner ballad. Take It Easy, of course, even though it's way overplayed. Still a pretty great song. A lot of fun. Nightingale. Peaceful Easy Feeling off the debut is a contender. It might be my favorite Glenn Frey track from the catalog. So great tune there. Now, next up, I'm going to put Long Run, or as the band themselves call it. I'm trying to get at an angle where it won't do this screen reflection so much, but here we go. The Long Run, or as the band called it, The Long One, because it took so long for them to make compared to the previous records. You can kind of hear some of the tension, I think. But tension can sometimes also make for excellent music, as we talked about before with bands like The Who and Van Halen. These bands don't always get along great. I think there was some interview where Don Henley was interviewed with Glenn Frey, and he said they're like brothers, and someone asked him about the contention in the past, and he said, well, do you always get along with your brother? Old cranky Don Henley there. But The Long Run, the title track, would certainly be a standout, maybe my very favorite thing on the album. It's probably between that and I Can't Tell You Why. Probably the best song ever from Timothy B. Schmidt. In the City, great Joe Walsh tune. Those Shoes, really funky tune. Beautiful Don Henley ballad that closes out the album, The Sad Cafe. I would call Heartache Tonight a top track, but I am a little tired of that. I often will get tired of songs that are highly overexposed, although I loved when Bob Seger did his version during the, I think it was the induction in the Kennedy Center honors, when he did that. Just great version of that. And he was a co-writer of that, and he was one of the people that got Glenn Frey started in the music business, so that was really neat. Next up, I think a big leap forward in quality from what we've been talking about. Certainly a huge leap forward from the debut was the second album, Desperado. Really cool record. Closest thing the band ever got to a concept album. Doolin Dalton would be a top track for me. Tequila Sunrise, another really cool kind of deserty Glenn Frey led track. Of course, the title track that was a huge hit for both the Eagles and for Linda Ronstadt, who they used to back, as everyone knows. Certain Kind of Fool, wonderful early Randy Meisner track, showing that impossible vocal range of his, had the unique vibe that the songs that he would kind of present. Outlaw Man is really cool. Saturday Night, unbelievable harmonies there. Bitter Creek. So really solid album. Now the tightest race to me in this ranking was actually between these two albums as to which one would take the number 3 spot and which one would take the number 2 spot. So at number 3, I'm going to put One of These Nights. One of These Nights. And really, in terms of top tracks from here on out, these next 3 albums, all of it. So I'm really going to just kind of maybe highlight little specific things about certain tunes, but there's not a wasted note on any of these next 3 albums, including One of These Nights. So One of These Nights, it's maybe my second favorite guitar moment from the band. And I don't just mean that dynamite solo. I mean the rhythm guitar parts, the guitar harmonies that weave in and out throughout the song. Then you've got Take It to the Limit with that incredible high note from Randy Meisner. After the Thrill Is Gone has just tremendous vocal interplay between Don Henley and Glenn Frey. Terrific, terrific, terrific record. Listened to that a lot in college, back when I would ride around doing my part-time gig delivering pizzas. My second favorite Eagles album, taking the #2 spot here, kind of a dark horse record. Oh, that screen is not going to show up very well here, but it is. It is. Let me see if I can arrange the lighting here just to have this show up a little bit better. Let me see if that works better. No, it doesn't work any better. Goodness. Well, anyway, I know you can't make that out, but that's the cover to On the Border. This is sort of a dark horse record. You know, a lot of people don't seem to love the record as much as I do. That's okay. Title track is one of the funkiest things they ever did. Sometimes gets some love on classic rock radio. I'm surprised it doesn't get more. Of course, Best of My Love is on this record. Let me see here. I wanted to have the track listing ready, actually, for this one to kind of go through. Just while I'm waiting for it to load, we'll talk about A Good Day in Hell. That's got some cool slide parts in it. Midnight Flyer is amazing, another Randy Meisner-led song. You can't tell, I really like the Randy Meisner songs. Just love all of the Eagles material. My internet is running a little bit slowly here, forgive me. But we've got... It's coming up now. Already Gone. Maybe the coolest album opener from the band in terms of just a nice upbeat kickoff to a great record. You Never Cry Like a Lover. Unbelievable Don Henley vocal on that one. James Dean, you know, there's a couple of songs that sort of have that 50s early rock and roll feel from Glenn Frey. That's a really cool song. Old 55, I believe, is a cover. I know it's a cover. I believe Randy Newman wrote it, as in, you know, Short People and all those classic Randy Newman songs. I mean, fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's a Randy Newman song. Is It True? You know, just fantastic, fantastic record. Now, I don't think anyone is going to be surprised by what I select as my #1. Has to be. Of course, it's Hotel California. How can it not be? And yes, I realize that you know, I talk a lot about being burnt out on songs that suffer from overexposure. Yes, Hotel California has been just played to death on classic rock radio, but honestly, I still love listening to that song. I don't know that I'll ever get tired of it. But then you've got other things on there like New Kid in Town, you know, some of the best vocal interplay there. You know, wonderful song. I remember they did a nice tribute. Sheryl Crow and her guitar player did a version of it to honor the passing of the great Glenn Frey. Life in the Fast Lane, maybe the hardest rockin' tune the band ever did. Amazing guitar riff and solos there. I think one reason that Long Road Out of Eden doesn't completely do it for me is, you know, by then they were just calling themselves officially a 4-piece, and to really properly be the Eagles, you need you need 2 lead guitar players. You really do. I know they started as a 4-piece, and you know, but to me they didn't really become the Eagles until you had that awesome Don Felder, Joe Walsh, you know, dueling guitar thing. Okay, and for a little while, I know it was Bernie and Don doing the but I like 2 lead guitarists in the Eagles. So this album makes great use of that throughout. Speaking of that, Try and Love Again with all those incredible harmonies, harmony guitar parts. Great Randy Meisner song again. You've got Wasted Time, you know, the reprise with the orchestra. Victim of Love, great slide playing in that. I know that in some ways kind of was the catalyst for the breakup of the band, the whole battle of who should do the lead vocal, Don Felder, who wrote it, or Don Henley. Well, I think we listeners benefited. That is my producer telling me it's time to wrap it up. So I'm coming to a close here, but I think we listeners are better off having a Don Henley-led vocal on Victim of Love than Don Felder. Sorry, Don Felder. Love you, but, you know, Don Henley's one of the greatest singers of all time. The Last Resort, just amazing. Just absolutely a perfect record that really, from my understanding, everything I've read about it, you know, I was a kid, you know, I was born in '69, so I was still just a little kid when this came out, but, you know, a lot of people have written about how this record perfectly represented the '70s West Coast experience, you know, so I believe that to be true. I've got to give some honorable mention to a few songs that are things that they cut. Now you've got Seven Bridges Road. I know there's not a studio version of that, but that's an amazing track. Hole in the World was a studio track, but they cut it for one of the compilations. And a Timothy B. Schmidt song, Love Will Keep Us Alive, also a highlight from the Eagles' career. I would love to see another Eagles album. You know, if they could do one that really had a cohesive band feel, maybe. Hey, let's have an album. Let's. My suggestion, if I were, you know, if the Eagles were going to listen to my thoughts, then let's include, you know, Glenn's son and the great Vince Gill as official members of the band, and then let's do an album with this current lineup. Because I've heard really good things about and from those shows. But that's going to do it for this edition of Listomania. Thank you so much for listening. I'm having a blast doing this. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, Rick Donato, from some pointers after listening to the Van Halen ranking. I think I've kept this one a little tighter. I would like to ask you to please subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it. We're going to do all kinds of things here. I'm going to continue to post my versions of famous guitar solos, look for some originals, look for lots more album rankings, but also maybe the occasional movie review. We're going to talk about some books. We're just going to have a lot of fun. So thank you for your support. Cheers. Happy Easter. See you soon.